Hey, my name is Paul Gavin. I've been making my entire living as a freelance musician since the year 2015, and it's been a long time since I've been back here. It's for a lot of reasons. I've had all kinds of cool life changes. I'm recently married. I've been married for 2.5 years, and that's just been the biggest blessing and the most wonderful thing in the world. COVID happened, so that was like not a blessing, but it was a change for sure. And then I did take a little bit of time off because I just wanted to kind of focus some time on just doing my career for a little while. And so I've been away for a little while, but I'm back, baby, and I'm going to answer some of your questions right now. So if you're watching the replay and you have a question that you'd like for me to answer maybe for next time, go ahead and type it in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer it. If you're here live with me now, then go ahead and type in a question, and if there's something that I can help with and it's relevant to the channel and relevant to the discussion, then I'll do my best to answer it either in the next time I do a live Q&A like this, or I will answer it in its own video. So go ahead and let me know what you're thinking. I think that covers everything for my introduction, so let's get started with the questions. These questions, by the way, are questions that have piled up in the 2.5 years that I've been, 3-ish years I've been away from YouTube videos. And so I'm looking forward to answering them. All right, here we go. All right, this first one is from TV Spicy Milk. He says, bro, you have so many people here asking you questions. Why don't you answer any of them? People know you're reading their comments. We see those hearts. Why not just give them some advice as a pro musician? This is a pro musician's guide, right? That is super fair. I've been gone. I've been away from doing YouTube videos, and that's actually the reason that I'm here and I'm back, is because I want to answer the questions and respond to the comments that you all have made in the last couple years. So that's why I'm here. So TV Spicy Milk, fair, good point. That's what I'm here for today. So thank you for writing in. I'm back, and we're gonna answer those questions. Okay, Chandler Keith says this. Hey, I know this is super late, but I have a passion in music. I play trumpet. I especially love jazz, but I want to be financially stable, so it's between that and pharmacy. Do you have any thoughts on this? Can I really make money in music, or is it a 1 in a million chance? I think that's a great question. This question was asked in reference to a video that I did about the music degree. And so this is I'll put a link in the description for that video in case you want to take a look at it. This is a video that's been most watched on this channel. So I have a video about the financial stability of being a musician, and I'll also link that in the description below because that video is definitely relevant to this question. So is it a 1 in a million chance to have a successful career as a professional musician? I think that calling it a 1 in a million chance actually excludes a lot of key factors that are involved in being a successful professional musician. It's not simply a roll of the die. There's actually so much more that goes into it. Your musical ability, your character, what kind of person you are, and do people want to work with you? The diversity of the abilities that you have, and are they the kind of abilities that are relevant to the current time? All of that plays an important factor in whether or not you're going to have a successful career as a professional musician, including lots of other things as well that I didn't mention. So it's an unfair assumption about music careers that they happen or don't happen just simply based on a roll of a die. Now, I will say there is some chance involved, but those chances always work for people who are prepared for them to come. And so that preparation in question, that's what you should focus on, and less about the chances. The chances will come because they tend to come for people who are in music. What you want to focus on instead is being prepared for those chances to come and offering yourself as many opportunities as possible for those chances to work in your favor. So I hope that answers your question, Chandler Keith. Oh, let me add one more thing. I'm constantly discovering that there are so many different ways to make money in music. I'll give you a couple examples real quick. I discovered, I think it was this week or last week, there's a person, a guy in Britain, if I remember correctly, and his stage name or producer name is The Unfinished. This guy, for a living, makes presets for software synthesizers. So if you've ever used something like Logic or Pro Tools, or I'm using Bitwig right now, if you ever use a DAW to write music, there's a guy who makes his entire living selling presets for software synthesizers. Excuse me. Did you know that exists? I didn't know that exists. I found that out last week. He makes them and he sells them on his website, and he also does custom ones for like, really famous film and TV composers. That's amazing to me. There's another person who I'm aware of. This person, a woman in California. Her name is Shannon Curtis. I'll try to include a link to her information in the description below of this video as well. She just does house concerts. She does concerts for people in their houses. She plays no traditional venues. And she just does a big summer tour of house concerts all around the United States. That's impressive. Did you know that existed? I didn't know that existed until I think about a year and a half ago. You got to realize that there are just a number of possibilities out there for ways that you can carve your space into the career of music. The key is to remain curious and keep looking for those things and be curious about them. Something that I discovered recently is something called production library music. So that's writing music for people who need music for their film and TV commercials, advertisements, things like that. You write the music and you put it in the library, and the library's clients will look at the library and they will pick that music up. I'm not talking about these royalty-free libraries. I'm talking about serious production music libraries where you can earn performance royalties if they're filmed and used in broadcasts. Your music is used in film or TV that is broadcasted. And you can earn sync fees for when someone syncs your music to their video production. I didn't know that existed until like the beginning of COVID season. The world is wide and endless. So don't cut yourself short by saying, oh, it's just a matter of chance. Now, that said, a career in music is not for everybody. And you need to have the things that I mentioned earlier in order to have a good shot. And even if you have those things, nothing is guaranteed in this world. But I don't think that means that it's a 1 in a million chance roll of the dice. Last thing, you mentioned pharmacy. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be a pharmacist, there's a good chance you'll make more money than a musician. Yeah. But, I mean, it really depends on if that's the most important thing to you. Do you want to be a pharmacist? Or are you being told to be a pharmacist by someone who's worried about your musician tendencies? Or what? Like, why are you considering pharmacy? If you're really interested in medicine and you think that's awesome, then yeah, go that direction. But if that's not something that sincerely interests you, at least choose a career path that interests you. It doesn't need to be music. If music scares you off a little bit, that's okay. Not everyone needs to be a musician who thinks that they would like to be. But don't sell yourself short. Make sure that you choose a career that you enjoy. That really, really, really is important. Okay, handle that. Michael Albert says musicians tend to be poor. I'm curious what your evidence is for that. The musicians that I know that are professional working musicians, they're not poor. They're neither rich either. Your average professional musician isn't making, pharmacy dollars necessarily. But I would be curious what your evidence is to say that musicians tend to be poor. That's not what I have observed in the world of professional musicians, and I'm one of them, and I'm in a big old fraternity of people who do this for a living. So I would tend to disagree. All right, let's hit that next question. Okay, Mina Bashial, I hope I said your name correctly. She says, can you share the total fees for a music degree? This is in reference to a video that I made talking about music degrees. No, I cannot share the total fee for music degrees because it varies like very, very widely depending on the institution, depending on what state, how prestigious what degree you want to get. All of these things vary. So I would just advise that you check with the institution and look up on their website what you want to find out. I will give you a little bit of advice on getting a music degree. If you're going to get a music degree, don't go into debt for it. Debt is crippling, and the path to being pretty stable as a professional musician, it takes time. Like, it took me about 2.5 years or so of like really, really hustling before I was pretty solid and getting gigs left and right, and getting opportunities to teach, getting opportunities to write music for schools and things like that. It takes time. And the last thing you need while you're trying to figure that out is a student debt payment. So I would strongly encourage avoiding that. Find every single scholarship you can. Don't go into debt if you can avoid it. If you're gonna go into debt, go on the very smallest debt that you can. Don't find the most expensive, prestigious school and try to go there. The school that you go to plays an important role in your education, but most of it is your work ethic. Most of it is what you do with the time that you have in school. So I would worry less about trying to go to the biggest, most expensive place in the world, and I'd worry a lot more about how am I going to look after school? Like, what's my situation going to be after school financially? And is that situation going to be detrimental or beneficial to my goals as a professional musician? So there you go. Look for a lot of scholarships, man. There's scholarships for everything. There's scholarships for, your ethnicity, what languages you speak, all your hobbies. There's scholarships for that. So I would just, look around for those scholarships. Look around for they're everywhere. I will tell you, my mom sat me down when I was in high school at the dinner table and said, you're going to fill out these scholarship applications. Man, she looked for scholarship applications everywhere, man. Essays and I didn't understand the value of it when I was in high school. But I went to school full ride for free. I had to pay like under $2,000 for everything for my college education. That made a huge difference. And that wasn't like a, roll of the dice luck. Like that was being forced, which I would recommend you force yourself instead of having to be forced. But being forced to put the work in to fill out, we had to have filled out 60, 70 scholarship applications. What I tell people now is like, fill out a scholarship application every day. Just do it every day. If you're a junior or a senior in high school, that scholarship money is sitting there waiting for you. So if you're willing to put the work in to not go into debt for music school, then you're going to be in a much better position than if you went into a whole bunch of debt trying to figure things out. All right, Mina, I hope that is helpful. Let's go to the next question. All right, Brittany RK is asking, could you somehow join a professional choir? I'd love to get paid to do what I'm so passionate in. I'd also love to be a professional pianist on the side, which I'm taking 2 classes for. Cool. So that's an excellent question. The first thing, this is a question in reference to my video about music degrees. A link in the description is available for that. I don't personally know of widespread professional choirs where a lot of people are making a steady living in that. It doesn't mean that they don't exist. That just means you're going to have to practice a lot of curiosity if you'd like to go in that direction. I will also say that considering a choir as a key part of your profession is a very old school traditional way of thinking about music careers. So that's really something to be considering. I would encourage you to do lots and lots of research on careers and really think out of the box. I mentioned in a couple questions ago, I've just from the practice of curiosity, I've learned about a lot of different ways that people make their living in music. I'll give you one example of what I do. I play the drums with kids. So in fact, that's what I'm going to be doing here in a little while is I'm going to run down to my car, grab the trailer that I have that's full of little drums, djembes, which are West African drums, and I'm going to go play drums with kids. That's what I'm going to do today. And that's part of my work. And so I do group musical programming with different demographics. I do that with kids. I do that with the elderly. I do it with all kinds of people, and so that's group programming. That's out of the box thinking. I didn't know that existed until I found someone who does it, which is often how this happens. I'll mention another interesting career that I discovered recently. There's a woman in California and she just does house concerts. She doesn't do any traditional performance venue. She just performs music in people's houses for the guests that they offer. That's her whole job. She does a big old tour for the summer, and then in the off season, she writes her next album, and then she tours her album in people's houses. She sells merchandise and she sells her music and things like that. That's her career, and she does that as a team with her husband. Her husband does the sound stuff for her performances. That's amazing. I didn't know that that existed. And so I would just strongly encourage you, rather than thinking just about traditional routes of making a living, I would strongly encourage you instead to practice a lot of curiosity. What else is out there? You like to sing, you're interested in choir. What else is out there? What else could you be doing that might make a difference in your career? And so I would just encourage you to practice lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of curiosity. I think that'll make a difference for you. Michael Albert has a comment. He says, what were you doing employment-wise during the height of the pandemic? Oh, yo, that's a super fair question, and I'll be really transparent about it. Because I'm a registered business, I'm an LLC, I had access to some of the government opportunities that were offered to small businesses, and I absolutely used those. I forgot what the name of that grant was, but I did get that grant. The EIDL grant was about $1,000 or so. And then the PPP loan, I did get the PPP loan as well. So those were a big help. That help is no longer available, but it was very helpful when I had it. Also during the pandemic, I taught lessons online just like this. The view that you're getting right now is the view that my students got. And I live in an apartment. I don't live in like a fancy house or anything like that. But I would grab, my drum pad and I would do lessons with them here, or I would pull my keyboard out and I would, coach them on their, marimba solos or whatever. So I did that. I still taught drumline during the pandemic, and I wrote music for 2 schools. I write percussion music. You can probably find some videos on my channel of me writing percussion music for schools live. I did that. And I also did the earlier in the last question that I answered, I mentioned the program that I do with kids, where I'll play drums with kids, and we adapted that program to do it online. And so a lot of schools and a lot of after school programs that we work with, we use those online, and we also did some other programming that wasn't an adaptation but was just made specifically for video. So that's what I did during the pandemic. So that's a great question. I appreciate your question there, Michael. All right, I'm gonna keep cooking with my prepared questions here, if you don't mind. We got another live. Savanu Chamadith, I apologize if I've pronounced your name incorrectly, says, is jazz music dying in Europe? I don't know. I live in Florida, so I couldn't tell you. I'm entirely unsure whether or not jazz music is dying in Europe. I will say jazz music has always been a niche, very small niche. Once its popularity kind of started to change in the 60s and 70s, it's always been like a very small, very specific thing. And so I do consider myself a jazz musician. Most of the drum set gigs that I play are somehow affiliated with jazz, whether it be very, very traditional jazz or New Orleans playing or like swing stuff or big band. Most of my drum set playing is somehow associated with jazz. But yeah, like it's always been a niche thing. So I don't know that it's dying. I mean, I think most of the dying that was to be done has already happened. It's always going to be a small niche in the world of music. Kind of like classical music. I don't know that classical music is ever going to die. There's something undying about it, something very enduring about it. But I mean, it's a niche, So is jazz music dying in? Man, I don't know. I have no idea. I couldn't tell you. I'm a drummer in Tampa, Florida. All right, I'm gonna move on. All right, Christopher Estrada says this. Hey Paul, you might not see this, but I just received my certificate of graduation, and let's just say it's not the most impressive or desirable degree in my family. Your words is exactly what I needed, and I'm going to push through with my mixing and mastering freelance and continue pursuing my dreams. Thanks heaps. Chris, I'm honored. Thank you. I'm glad to have been able to be some form of encouragement. This is in reference to my video about music degrees, which I have linked below in the description. First, I want to give you props on the mixing and mastering work. That is a really, really relevant career path during this climate. I mean, especially since COVID. Everyone needs music, prepared for their, advertisements. Everyone's been doing far more online campaigns than they ever have. The need for music, recorded music, has grown, and not everyone has the skills to make their recordings sound good. So that is a great career path in the music umbrella, and I firmly support you doing it. Just like every other career path in music, you need to be amazing. You need to be incredible. You need to be top of the top tier in order for it to be anything that's sustainable. But that's a great direction to go. There's a lot of demand for that. I would encourage you to be curious about everything that you can do in that world. Don't get stuck in, I'm going to be in a recording booth and I'm going to be the guy behind the big mix desk. Open up. Don't narrow yourself down to that. Those opportunities with big recording studios, my perception of that, based on what I'm hearing my friends in the industry say, is that those opportunities have not increased. If anything, they've decreased. But you can do incredible mixing and mastering work right here from your computer, So that's exciting. That's a good choice. I wish you the very best in that. Keep that up. As far as your degree not being impressive, look, your degree doesn't need to impress anybody. Mixing and mastering is a good path. It's got a lot of opportunities and applications in the modern music world. Just win. Put in the work, put in lots of time, learn your craft, know everything that you can about mixing and mastering. Be curious, check out a lot of interviews of people who have done something along the lines of what you would like to do, and dig really, really deep into that. Dig really deep and be incredible. And then your degree doesn't have to impress anybody. Now, by the way, degrees are not impressive. Not in the music world. I've never ever once been hired because I had a jazz degree from here or there. No one has ever hired me because of the piece of paper. I've only ever been hired because I'm good at the drums. If you hire me to play the drums well, I'm gonna play the drums well. That's what keeps me hired. And so no one's ever, well, where'd you get your degree? No one has ever asked me that in reference to whether or not they're gonna hire me. So I wouldn't be concerned about that. Your degree doesn't need to impress anybody, and it won't impress anybody. Be amazing. That will impress people. All right. Bernadette Schmidt, hello there. She says, did you find the kids still did well with the online format? I'm planning on starting to take voice students this winter and want to keep them engaged if we have to do online lessons. Oh man, that's a great question. I would love to talk about that. I feel like I probably should make a separate video about that. The view that you're seeing now is the view that I use for my online lessons. So if you'll excuse me for 1 second, let me show you something here. I'm grabbing the drum pad. Boom, right there. Let me go in this closet here for a second. All right, I'm gonna get a pair of sticks. This is the view right here that I use when I'm teaching private lessons. Same camera, same lights. This is what it looks like right here. On my walls those are frame drums. But this is what I do right here. And I teach lessons from this direction. I'll have this is my computer screen right here, if you couldn't tell. Right here, I'll have a monitor, and that's gonna show me what my students are doing. And I'll be right here, and I'll demonstrate, and I'll say, hey, let's do this, let's change this. And by the way, I teach these lessons, from right here, I teach drum set lessons, I teach marimba lessons, I teach concert snare drum lessons, I teach marching percussion lessons from right here with my pad. And that's because my teaching does not require me to be right next to my student. My teaching really focuses on teaching my students to listen to themselves and to critically analyze themselves. And man, that's how my teaching always has been, but that has been very, very, very helpful throughout this pandemic when I'm not right next to my students all the time. That's been a big help. So the first thing I would say is if your teaching is dependent in any way on being right next to your student, I would encourage you to think about ways to not do that. The main thing is being able to speak what you need in your student's language as opposed to having to demonstrate it. Demonstration is, I think, kind of a crutch for teachers that we probably need to do a little bit better at. Rather than having to demonstrate everything, see if you can put it into words that your student will understand. That's a start. I really should make a full video on like, here's how you teach a really good online lesson. Another thing that I did a lot in my online lessons is I would write my students' exercises right in front of them. So I'd pull Sibelius up and I'd boom, and I'd put it for them right there. Share screen. Hey, play this for me. Okay, let's adjust the height of your taps. Okay, hey, play this for me again. Boom. And that created a level of interaction that I've never actually managed in a personal lesson. There was something about them seeing their exercise being written right in front of them that seemed to be really interesting for them. I was also able to find videos of video examples of people far better than me demonstrating what I wanted them to understand. That I also found fascinating is I could pull up, like I would, in personal lessons, I would sit down and I'd play, hey, this is what I want you to do. It looks like this. Okay, your turn. But being away, physically away from my student allowed me to actually do something amazing. I could go to YouTube and pull up Jeff Hamilton playing what I want them to play, or pull up Philly Joe Jones playing what I want them to play, or pull up Larnell Lewis playing what I want them to understand, or a concept well demonstrated, or I could find a recording or something like that, and I could immediately pull that up, share screen, boom, they're right there. And the environment that I previously taught private lessons in, there weren't any screens like that. I could have used my laptop, but there was like something clunky about it. And so I would, most of all, I just encourage you, like, embrace the difference. Like, it's different, let it be different. And even communicate that with your students. Hey, like, these onlines, they're gonna be different, but they're gonna be amazing in a couple of ways that I've already worked on. I'm excited to share them with you. I've loved teaching lessons online. My students haven't missed a thing. I will say I do have a couple students that are like just a little teeny bit antsy now, but for the most part, my students are like perfectly happy with this. So I think it's an exciting time. So I'd encourage you to definitely do your online lessons if that's what's necessary. Online does not replace in person, but I mean, we got a situation right now where we're trying to be wary of, a worldwide pandemic, which I think we should be. So if you gotta go with online lessons, do it. Become a better teacher. Accept those limitations. Often in music, it's the limitations that cause us to become more creative in a more confined space. I'd say accept it. Pull it in, accept it, do something awesome with it. That would be my suggestion, Bernadette. Okay, all right. I'm a cook. I gotta cook. Here we go. That has been answered. Oh, this is great. Jack Walker says, most musicians are teachers who have music as a hobby. Now, the reason I added this is because this is endemic of the mindset of people who don't know very much about music careers. It's really important to remember, as someone who's interested in this career, that most people gain their understanding of music careers from things like films and TVs and the news and personal anecdotes. That's where people who are not musicians learn about the music world. And oftentimes musicians' lives are dramatized in those situations. And so because of that, people develop this perception of things like this. Well, people who call themselves musicians aren't actually making a living in music. They're just hobbyists and they teach private lessons or something like that. By the way, don't knock teaching private lessons, because teaching private lessons is amazing. And I don't think being a private lessons teacher makes you any less of a musician. And being a musician doesn't mean not being a teacher. In fact, lots of great performers are also teachers. But a lot of performers are not. I know a number of musicians on my scene here in Tampa, Florida area, Central, South Florida area, that are not interested in teaching lessons. They're just not a teacher. They don't want to teach lessons, and they don't. Good. You don't need to be a teacher. But as far as this assumption, I would love to know what Jack's evidence for believing that is. Why does Jack believe that? Is it because of something he saw on TV? Is it because his long lost uncle turned out to be a musician and he was weird? Guys, you can't worry about like stuff like this. These concerns that are unfounded. There's plenty of founded concerns in a professional career in music, but like, this is not one of them. This is a perspective from someone who doesn't know professional musicians, and so that's why they're saying something like this, because they don't know what they're talking about. You can't let people who don't know what you're talking about distract you from your focus, okay? Yeah, that's what I'll say about that. Bernadette Schmidt said, "Thank you so much, really encouraging. This was great advice, and yes, please make a video about teaching good online lessons." Bernadette, I'm gonna do it. I will make a video about that. So keep an eye on the channel. It's gonna happen, okay? Savanu Shamadith says, "What are the differences between modern and traditional jazz drum styles?" That's kind of a drummer question, and I'm not really doing drummer questions right now, but maybe I don't think that's a question that I'm going to answer on this channel. That's not really what the channel is about. Here's what I'll say. Check out Philly Joe. Check out Jeff Hamilton. Check out Papa Joe Jones. Check out Elvin Jones. Really, if their last name is Jones, you should check them out in jazz. Check them out. And then check out Antonio Sanchez and Mark Juliana, and I mentioned Jeff Hamilton, but he's kind of a crossover between the old and the new, and Bill Stewart. Check them out. Check that out. And I'm going to move on from this topic. It's not quite what this channel is about, but I appreciate you asking the question. Okay. All right, let's get the next one up. Most musicians are teachers that have a hobby. Okay, here's a more lengthy comment. Great video, Paul. I'm in a similar situation where I graduated with my bachelor's degree in professional musicianship 2 years ago. I studied guitar. I spent these past 2 years doing guitar lessons around my local and neighboring villages. The problem is I don't want to be a teacher. Never wanted to. I want nothing more than to compose, record, and produce music for film, TV, and games. Problem is, a degree is no entry card into this field from my observations, and constant attempts to secure one of these roles have been met with no success. They only want people with years worth of experience working in the industry, which is understandable. So if I don't want to teach, was my music degree useless? And an MA, Master's in the Arts of Music, won't improve my chances, I'm guessing, so I'll probably find a new line of work, keep music as a hobby on the side. This video was interesting and helpful. All the best. Harry. Thank you, Harry. Harry's question is in reference to a video I did on whether or not you should get a master's degree in music, and I will link that video in the description of that video in the description of this video when you see it later on. Harry handles a couple different things here, so let's deal with both of them. The first one is he wants to get into film, TV, and game music. I'm not an expert in this field yet, but I'm learning a lot about it right now, and it's something that I'm interested in. There's something I want you to look up, Harry. It's called Production Music Libraries. In fact, I'm going to link a really great book that kind of changed my life during the COVID season. I'm going to link that in the description of this video, and I think that might be pretty helpful to you. Production music libraries are libraries that accept music from composers, and they kind of file it in a database, if you will. And then they accept requests from clients. The clients will say, hey, I need this kind of music for this thing that I'm doing. And then the library will point them to music that appropriately reaches their need. So if you put music in a production music library, you can get paid in two kinds of ways. You can get a sync fee, S-Y-N-C fee, sync fee. That's when someone pays to have the right to sync your music to their publication. This is a world that I just found out about, by the way. The second thing way that you can get paid is through performance rights. performance royalties, excuse me. So if your music is broadcast in some way, whether it be in the United States or around the world, if it's played in someone's video on broadcast television of any kind, you can get royalties for that. And so there are people who I've just now discovered in the last, year and a half or so, who just write production music all day. They wake up in the morning, they write music for stuff like that. They send it into their libraries, and that's their job. And then every quarter they get a check, a sync fee, sync checks from the library that they work with. And every quarter they get performance royalties from their performance rights organizations, PROs. And I'm sure you've heard of ASCAP, BMI if you're in the United States, PRS if you're in the UK, for example. And so you should look into that. I think that might be a good starting point for you. Libraries don't care about your long, history of, I've been doing a long time, because no one cares about that in the production music world. They just want the music to be good, because the music entirely speaks for itself in a library. It's either the right thing for the cut or it's not. And if it's the right thing, it gets used. So it's a very, very interesting way of making a living in music, and it's something that I'm actually pursuing right now. Okay, cool. So that was the kind of the first part of his question. The second part of his question was his music degree useless? Everybody's music degree generally is useless. Plot twist. Did you know I was going to say that? Unless you got a music education degree, the degrees that you get in music education, music therapy, things like that, where you're in a more standardized work environment, those are important degrees to have. But no, really, a performance degree is totally useless. The paper itself doesn't accomplish anything. I'll tell you what does accomplish something: being good at your art. Being amazing at your art accomplishes a lot. And so if you figure out how to do that, doesn't matter if you have a degree or not. Here's where the degree comes in play. When you go to college for music, your entire world is music 24/7. That makes a huge difference in the quality of your education. And so I do encourage people generally to do something like that, but you don't have to. You can also just get a part-time job and do music on the side and try to turn it from the side thing into your full-time thing. That's totally possible. That's not the path I tend to recommend, because it's much slower. There's a lot more opportunity for burnout, and you quit and you want to do something else. I tend to recommend going head first if you can, and a college education is a great way of doing that. But the value of going to school is in the education. It's not in the degree. By the way, that's true for every degree, not just the music degree. The value is in the education. It's in the skills that you accumulate. And when you have those skills nice and solid and true, nobody cares about your degree. They just want you to do your thing, because they know that you can do your thing real good. And that's what people are looking for. So your music degree wasn't useless. I would just encourage you to find a way to make really good use of it. The last thing he mentioned is that he didn't want to be a teacher. I have a video about that, and I will put that video in the description below as well. If you don't want to be a teacher, you shouldn't be a teacher. Teaching is a precious, special calling. It's not a calling in that, someone calls you to do it, but it's a calling in that it's just really important. It's not something you should do so you can just get money, because you become the steward of especially kids, of their emotional health, their physical health, their spiritual health. And you shouldn't do that unless you take it seriously. You really should leave that to someone who feels a deep connection to that work, as opposed to just doing it because you want the money. So if you don't want to be a teacher, I would encourage you to stop teaching soon. Don't be a teacher if you don't want to be a teacher. If you want to be a teacher, hang in. By the way, if you're having trouble with teaching because you don't know how to teach, that's a different thing. In the video that I mentioned addresses that a little bit. I would just encourage you to find some teachers in your area, or maybe consider the teachers that you had. Ask them some questions. Teaching, I find to be amazing. It's a big part of my career. I'm one part performer, one part educator, and I love both, and I would die if I couldn't do both. And so I love it. I love it. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. And I would encourage anyone who wants to be doing it to do it. However, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. It's okay not to do it. I know plenty of musicians on my scene that don't teach. They do other stuff. That's perfectly good. All right, Harry, I hope that that's helpful. I've got time for one last question. If you're interested in, if you've got a question you want to ask me, go ahead and ask me, and I will try to answer that after I answer this last question right here. Andres says, I'm a sophomore in high school, and you definitely made me feel more sure about pursuing music in the future. Thank you, Andres. I'm glad to be able to be helpful. Here's what I'll tell you about that. A career in music is not guaranteed. I want to be clear about that. If you want to go in this direction, it's a challenging direction. It takes a whole lot of work, But if you do the work, there are blessings, man. Like, it is an amazing career. It's just such a good time. So if you want to pursue it all the way. Don't do it halfway. It's exciting that you're a sophomore. And this comment was from about 8 months ago, so still a sophomore. It's great that you're a sophomore. This is what I would encourage you to do. And these are the things that I did in high school that made a really huge difference. Practice all the time, man. Practice all the time. Learn everything you can about music. Make it a priority now. You need to start practicing for what you want to accomplish in your future right now. Don't worry about let's say you're a drummer, although I don't know that you are, you may be something else, but don't worry about the other drummers in high school. That's not your competition right now. Your competition right now is the professional musicians that you're really, really amazed by. So if you're a drummer, your competition is Antonio Sanchez and Nate Smith. Let's go, get it together. Put in a lot of time practicing. The other thing is, don't just obsess about your instrument. Consider some other skills. The skill that gave me longevity in the beginning of my career was not playing the drums. It was actually being able to write marching percussion music. That's what hooked me up. When I first moved to Tampa, I was given a job as a drumline instructor, and I wrote the music for the school the second year that I was there, and I've written music for that school for the last 10 years. In fact, this year was the first year that I didn't write music for that school, and that's because I've actually stopped teaching drumline, at least at that school. It was an interesting situation there. But I stopped teaching drumline, and so that's why. Be curious about other possibilities. Have you considered music production? Do you know anything about softwares like Logic or Ableton? Look into that. Be curious about that. Do you know how to record your instrument? A lot of musicians did well during the pandemic because they were able to record themselves on their instrument. Consider that. That's a big deal. Start accumulating some side skills that are not just playing your axe, whatever your axe is, and start bringing those in. Start being curious about that. Do you like writing? There are people who write about music. Do you enjoy talking about music? I've got friends that do radio, the possibilities are wide and endless, So start being curious about those things now. I'll remind you that lots of non-musicians get their information about music careers from movies and television and the news and from personal anecdotes. And oftentimes music careers are very much so dramatized in those contexts, so you never actually hear from professional musicians who are just doing their career. So you're probably going to get a lot of pushback about, you want to be a professional musician, not a good idea. Here's all the bad things that happened. Did you see that one movie? Blah, 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 blah. Don't worry about that stuff. What you should do is try to find professional musicians who are actually doing it and ask them hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of questions. You should be annoying with the number of questions you should have. That'll make a big difference for you. The other thing I'll say to you is think out of the box. Start thinking out of the box now. Do lots and lots of career research. One of the things I did when I was your age, oh wow, am I old? Well, when I was your age is I listened to lots and lots of interviews, and I still make a habit of that. I try to watch, read, listen to lots and lots of interviews of people who have been successful and see what I can learn. My career right now is a combination of hundreds of things that I've learned from hundreds of different interviews and videos that I listened to and just took notes on and paid attention to. So I wish you the very best of luck, Andres. I think you will do just fine. I think you've got a shot. Just be deliberate and be intentional, and I think you've got a shot. Okay. Savin News says, yes, these days I'm studying jazz drumming, and thanks for your opinions. Yeah, man, that's my road. That's what I do. Is I do the jazz drums. That's my thing. It's not all that I do, but it's my main thing. When people hire me to play the drums, that's what I'm doing, and I love it. So thank you. Alrighty, folks. I gotta go to my gig. I gotta leave. I thank you so much for hanging with me. If you have a question that was not answered in this video, leave a comment, and the next time I do one of these videos, I'll try my best to answer it. We've got a video on how to do online private lessons well coming up, thanks to Bernadette Schmidt. So I will see what I can do about that, and I'll get that up sometime soon for you, Bernadette, and everybody else, of course. So that's that for now. I wish all of you the very, very best, and you can do this. Don't let people tell you that you can't. Until next time, let's lock arms, lift each other up, and rise together. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.